Hello everyone, welcome back to Books with Benghis Khan. I have to thank Nico at Nico's Book Reviews for being the first person to tag me in this new channel, so thank you so much, Nico. I have for you the book acquiring tag, and I have a major book buying issue, so this is going to be a fun one for me to do. So the first question is, do you plan your book purchases ahead of time or impulse buy? I definitely do a combination of these. So I love putting books on my TBR. I have hundreds on there, probably at any given time. And so I will try to plan out those where if I see them at a used bookstore or pop up online on sale somewhere or on bookoutlet.com, then I'll be ready to buy those. So I kind of plan out to buy a lot that are on my TBR. And then I'll also impulse buy at bookstores. I love going to used bookstores or Barnes & Noble or local smaller bookstores and just walking around the stacks, picking out a book or two at a used bookstore, maybe a lot more than a book or two, and seeing what catches my fancy. Sometimes things I didn't know about, other times things that were on my radar but maybe didn't have on my TBR yet, but were cheap at a used bookstore. So I love impulse buying in person, and then online I try to wait for sales and plan those out a little bit. Question 2. How do you decide what books to buy? Well, I will usually buy anything that I see on sale if it's on my TBR. So I look for new book recommendations from BookTube channels I follow, from Goodreads reviewers I follow, friends' recommendations, just things that are in general on my radar as a huge modern fantasy and science fiction fan. So anything that's on the TBR, I will buy if I see it on sale or if it's time for me to read it and I really want to check it out. And otherwise, I will usually buy books from authors that I know and trust and sometimes pre-order from them. Really looking forward to the next Mistborn book, the next Sun Eater book, and have pre-ordered those. If I'm buying books new, then I'll usually be pretty picky and want to have a good feel for if I will like it or if it's up my alley. But otherwise, if it's on Book Outlet or at a used bookstore, I'll take a risk and just buy a whole bunch of things if they're heavily discounted and in good condition, because I love stockpiling books. Number 3, what is your philosophy on where you shop? So I do a lot of in-person book shopping and online. So there are 3 outstanding used bookstores that kind of form a triangle in central New Jersey that aren't too far from me. And one of them, Second Time Books, just has a huge room of fantasy and science fiction. The others also have a great selection of fantasy and science fiction and a lot of other things too. And they're all about within 20 to 30 minutes of each other. They're always fun to go to, and I usually come out of there with a big box or bag full of books. And otherwise, I do like going to Barnes & Noble occasionally or other small bookstores, but there aren't too many of those around in the suburbs. So if I'm in a city, I definitely love visiting whatever small bookshops there are. But otherwise, I will gladly shop online at Book Outlet, where it's like an online used bookstore almost, except everything's in new condition. And so it's fun to check there every couple days and see what new offerings they have that are heavily discounted. And that's where I currently get most of my books. If there are books that aren't available locally or through Book Outlet, then I'll usually look for places online that have discounts, whether it's regular discounts that Barnes & Noble runs or Target often has a buy 2 get 1 free kind of discount that comes around every few months, and they carry a lot of fantasy books online. And so I will often shop from there. I try to avoid using Amazon because I already patronize Amazon a lot through Audible. So I usually listen to books in a hybrid way, where I'm listening to an audiobook and reading in print, sometimes doing immersion reading, doing both at the same time. And so I buy a lot of audiobooks. So I heavily depend on Audible sales. Whenever they throw up sales where audiobooks are cheaper than $10, I'll get anything that's on my TBR. Or when they do buy 2 for 1 credit, I'll usually find at least a couple things on the TBR that I can get there. So with how many audiobooks I like to have in my library, especially because I like the chance to reread and not rely on my library or Libby, which often doesn't have what I'm looking for anyway. So I try to get audiobooks on sale, try to get print books on sale, and save money where I can, and try to avoid just using Amazon also as much as possible. Question 4, what about free libraries? I do like going to my local library occasionally, but I also just like owning books because I want to be able to see the covers on the shelf. I want to be able to reread them whenever I want. A lot of the library book copies are also older and not in great condition, and it just kind of lessens the enjoyment factor while I'm reading. So I tend to want to own books, and so library is great, but I want to read them on my schedule and be able to reread them anytime I want or let friends borrow them. So that's why I tend to like to buy my audiobooks or physical books. Question 5, how do you feel after acquiring a book, and do you share? So I am a collector at heart. I've always enjoyed collecting things since when I was very young, and so I just feel good when I get new books that were on my radar or that I had my eye on. I usually just have a nice, warm, cozy feeling inside. And even better if it's a beautiful book or by an author that I really like. And just like recently, I got these new hardcovers, deluxe edition of Name of the Wind, which I've never even read, and a deluxe edition of The Lord of the Rings, illustrated. And that just makes me happy to get those new ones. And I like to share. Previously, I've just taken some glamour shots and shared them on Discord, but now that I have a channel, I'll probably get some book hauls going after I amass a bunch and be able to show those off. Question 6. How do you feel about looking at the books that you haven't read? Well, I am an expert on this subject because I own many hundreds of books that I have not read. And I know that makes some people feel anxious, but I actually love it. I'll sometimes just look over my shelves that I have. This is just one of them behind me, and just look at all those titles and authors that I haven't tried yet and think about all of the amazing experiences they might hold within those pages. And I also just like to know what I have and to be able to feel like when I'm done with my current read or current series that I have all these different options depending on what mood I'm in. Question 7. How do you decide what number of unread books is the right amount? Well, that answer for me genuinely is infinity. I could fill up my house with unread books and be happy as a clam. But I do have space concerns. I don't really have any more open shelf space, and in one of my closets with a lot of my books, I'm just double and triple stacking on some of those shelves. And so I'm running out of space. I might have some room for a few bookshelves more, but not much more than that. So I'm going to have to slow down and probably end up going more digital in the future. Question 8. Do you have a TBR game or any process for figuring out what to read next? And definitely no. I am a very impulsive mood reader, but I like to binge series, or at least huge chunks of series in a row. So I'll read one author, one series for quite a long time, and then I'll just try to get as immersed in that as possible. And then when I'm done, I won't have anything planned after that, so I'll look around. I'll spend a lot of time sometimes looking over all the books I have and thinking about what I want to try and what mood I'm in after the previous read. And so I'll make a decision then in that moment what to do next. And so I definitely do not plan out my TBRs ahead of time, and just like the impulsive decision that comes with choosing the next read. Question 9. Do you have a book buying problem? Yes. I will buy whole series before I've read anything by an author, before I've read the first book in the series. If it's on my radar and I think I might like it, I just love getting my hands on as many of them to complete sets as I can. And so, yes, I have hundreds of unread books, and I'm running out of space, and occasionally it backfires because I don't end up liking a series or loving a series as much as I had hoped, and then I'm stuck with all these books. It also encourages me to not DNF a series. Like Chronicle of the Unhewn Throne, recently I had the first 3 books of the trilogy and then Skullsworn, the standalone, already on my shelf, ready to go. So I read the first one, didn't love it, but I already had the other ones, so I continued, and I bore that sunk cost, and I wish I had just took it a book at a time, so I wouldn't have wasted my time on those. Same thing happened with the Poppy War books. I ended up unhauling those, but after reading the whole series and being disappointed, so I most definitely have a book buying problem and need to back off a little and just go through the books I now have currently, because they'll serve me well for at least a couple more years, even if I don't add in a single new book. Can my book buying disease be overcome or adjusted in any way? I am not sure, because I love reading print books so much. I got a Kindle a while back, but I rarely used it, and it is just a little bit hard for me to ever feel like I can pick that up when I love holding books and seeing my progress as I go, reading from the pages. It's just an experience that I'll find hard to give up. So I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to fix this issue, but I really need to work on it and at least wait a little longer before bringing in loads of new books as I go through my physical TBR. I'd love to hear what some of my favorite booktubers have to say about this tag, so I'm going to tag Jake Bishop, Kyle from Read by Kyle, and Pete from Ponderings of Pete. Love to see all about your book acquiring habits and thoughts. So, hope you enjoyed this one, and catch you later.